Alright class, in this short video, we're going to be talking about how Japan has earthquakes and their tsunamis. But before we can do any of that, let's review real quick about the 4 islands of Japan. We've learned that Japan is an island nation off the coast of East Asia. So East Asia includes the region of China, Korea, the Koreas, both North and South, and Mongolia. It is made up of 4 large islands, and it has over 3,000 smaller islands, and altogether has over 6,000 islands. Alright, so yesterday we learned, or on Tuesday, we learned that Japan is made up of 4 main islands. Those islands are the island of Hokkaido, the island of Honshu, the island of Kyushu, and the island of Shikoku. Now, altogether, the country of Japan is about the size of Montana. Now, Montana, and if we were compared to the United States, is this one right here. However, area-wise, land-wise, this, if we were to look at a picture, or if we were to overlap Japan over the United States, this is how big Japan would be. And you can see just the difference in sizes in between our two countries. Alright, a mountainous land. Mountains cover almost 3/4 of Japan, so it is 75% of it is covered by mountains. Now, Japan's mountains are formed thanks to tectonic plates found beneath the sea, so from underground. Japan, because of these mountains, is also home to volcanoes. Now, we've talked about this with our vocabulary words, and that word is the Ring of Fire. Now, Japan is found on the Ring of Fire, which, as we've learned, is an area rimmed by the Pacific Ocean where earthquakes and volcanic eruptions frequently occur. Now, on the next slide, we take a look at where this Ring of Fire is located. So if we look at either picture on the left or right, the area that's kind of highlighted in orange is what is considered the Ring of Fire. Now, as you can see, Japan is right on there, and because of that, there's a lot of volcanic activity, there's a lot of earthquakes. And so because of where it's located, Japan is home to over 1,500 earthquakes and volcanic eruptions every year, which is mind-boggling that they have so many. Now the next question is, what causes earthquakes? An earthquake is the violent shaking of the Earth's crust. Now, with more technology and science, we have a better understanding of what it is. Back in the day, especially in Greek mythology, they used to think that earthquakes were created by Poseidon, who was god of the seas. Now we know that that's not the case. Earthquakes can cause buildings, bridges, and roads to collapse, which is what makes them super, super dangerous. One thing that people and students make the mistake of is thinking that earthquakes kill people. That's not the case. Buildings are things that fall on people is usually what kills them or hurts them. Now, in Japan, earthquakes happen almost every day. Some are just so small that people don't feel them. Now, these pictures on the bottom are examples of some damage that Japan has had to deal with in the past at some point or another. On the one on the left, you're looking at roads being completely destroyed, and you're seeing on the right houses completely shifting and being completely destroyed. The next thing, the other natural disaster that Japan faces when it comes other than earthquakes are tsunamis. Now, tsunamis are large, powerful waves caused by an earthquake or volcanic eruption. Some tsunamis can cause a lot of damage to cities and towns, and one thing we're going to talk about on the next slide is the difference between a wave caused by just any wave that you see in nature compared to one from a tsunami. If you look at down below, we have a picture of a tsunami wave, and it's pretty devastating. Alright, the difference between a tsunami and a regular wave. Now, on the left, we have a picture with some words that kind of describe what the difference is. Tsunamis are often no taller than normal wind waves, but they are much, much more dangerous. Wind waves, which are normal waves, come and go, and without flooding higher areas. Tsunamis, which is the one on the bottom, run quickly over land as a wall of water. So the way that it was described to me is when a wind wave comes, it kind of has a circular motion when it hits the shore, and a tsunami is like a giant brick wall of water. Now, obviously the brick wall of water is going to be stronger, so it's going to have much more force. And we'll talk more about that later. Now, regretfully, in March 11th of 2011, a magnitude 9 earthquake struck Japan and unleashed a huge tsunami. One of the things that we know, looking back now, is that this earthquake was in the middle of the offshore in the ocean, really strong. This earthquake was so strong that it was felt all over the world. I mean, it was felt in countries like Norway, it's felt in Alaska, Hawaii, and even parts of the western United States. Regretfully, this earthquake was strong enough to cause the death and disappearance of over 22,000 people. Now, not the most deadly, not the deadliest earthquake or tsunami, but anytime you have loss of life to a natural disaster, it's pretty bad. When the tsunami came on shore, this was such a devastating tsunami that it actually came inland, so it came from the ocean onto land as far as 6 miles. So let's imagine from here to about halfway to Overton is how far that wave came in. So if we look at some of the cities in Japan, they're right along the coastline or right along the shore. So 6 miles, you can get pretty far, and with so many buildings, you're going to get a lot of destruction and devastation. So if you look on the bottom left, we have a picture where outside of Fukushima, you can see some of the damage that was done from the tsunami. This tsunami and earthquake has been so severe, or was so severe, that 5 years later, the people of Japan are still rebuilding the city of Fukushima. They're still rebuilding. Some people are too afraid to go back because the experience that they faced that day was so traumatic. The picture on the right, you kind of have the picture on the top is of what happened after the earthquake and tsunami, and the one below is that of kind of what they've been doing to rebuild and so forth. And you can see they've cleaned it up, but there's still a lot to be done. There's no buildings. It's pretty much just a ghost town. Kind of going back a little bit to tectonic plates. Tectonic plates are a section of the Earth's crust that floats on the Earth's mantle. So this is another reason why Japan has so many earthquakes, is because Japan sits on top of 4 plates, which is another major reason Japan has so many of these. So if we look at Japan, I'll circle Japan here. Japan's right here, and you can see that there's 1, 2, 3, 4 plates that are pushing, trying to get, or that are pushing into Japan. And anytime one of those plates moves or shifts, this is when we get earthquakes. Now, due to these earthquakes, Japan has had to learn to live with earthquakes. So just like we here in Nebraska, we have tornado drills. In Japan, students and adults have to practice earthquake drills and tsunami drills. So that way, if something does happen, the alarm goes off, they know what to do. Regretfully, people cannot stop them from happening, so they have to be prepared when they do hit. The picture on the bottom kind of shows what to do. For example, one of the things in earthquakes that sometimes people are asked to do is drop, cover, and to hold on to something, typically going underneath a desk. Or the other safe alternative, if you can get out of a building, is to get as far away from tall buildings so that they don't fall on you. In regards to a tsunami, anytime a tsunami siren goes off, it's one of those things where they have to go to higher ground immediately. So if you're on the coast or on the beach and an earthquake hits, you have to pretty much assume there will be a tsunami. And that requires you to go to higher ground. Not necessarily go into a high building, because that's pretty dangerous, but you need to go to on hillsides and things like that. So hopefully this kind of explains a little bit, or gives you a better idea of how and why earthquakes happen in Japan. We'll discuss this more in the following days. If you have any questions, just let me know. Bye.